Coming to you from the city of the weird. Exploring topics from the esoteric and unexplored to dimensions unknown. Shining a light of truth on the darkest corners of our reality. Welcome to the Curious Realm.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to this awesome Tuesday night. Post-Easter. Welcome to the Easter season, everybody. We have a very special Easter episode tonight. Very excited to be talking with Mary Joyce, author of Spy in the Sky. We have had her on talking about Spy in the Sky before. That is The Secret and Cover-Up of Earth and Beyond, talking about structures on the moon, structures on Mars, structures on Earth, all kinds of things that are just beyond belief. We'll be talking with Mary about the mystery of the Shroud of Turin, the long-held item that is believed to be the burial cloth of Jesus of Nazareth. We will be getting into that, the mystery surrounding it, the science surrounding it, all kinds of interesting things with the Shroud of Turin during our first part of the episode. Warning folks, during the second part of the episode, we will be having our good friend Archbishop James Cloud on the show, talking about our non-typical fare. Normally, whenever we have him on, it's in the realm of demonology, in the realm of paranormal, dealing with exorcisms, things like that. Tonight, we will be talking about what it is to be a religious leader in this modern day and age. We have some very special things going on in our world and some very special changes going on generationally. And what it means to be a religious leader during that time, and what the whole kerfuffle right now with the Dali Lama is all about. And really, you know, I mean, we've seen people just about lighting torches, getting ready, with big words like pedophilia, things like that. And I'm not supporting what he did. You will see that in the second segment upcoming, folks. But what we really get into is the hard conversation of where we are as a society. Why the double standard? Why the standard for some, and it's a cultural thing, or it's joking around with others. So this is a very important conversation, and as soon will be followed up, of course, with our good friend Billy Joe Kane from Radical Imp, the Education Foundation, talking about his work in anti-trafficking, things like that. He will be coming on here in the next couple weeks. I literally hold in my hand right now, I'm going to give you my Rush Limbaugh. My pre-record schedule. You can see my horrible chicken scratch handwriting, but that's my pre-record schedule for like the next week and a half. Things have lit up. I am going to be literally on the road for the entire next month. So get ready for 3 weeks of pre-recorded episodes. As I promise you always, never a rerun. You always get new content with Curious Realms. So before we welcome Mary on, let's, of course, go through our news of the week. News of the week is brought to you by the Facebook group. Stop on by Facebook, join the Curious Realm group, join the conversation. Of course, out of theguardian.com, Dalai Lama apologizes after kissing boy and asking him to, quote, suck his tongue. Out of the San Francisco Gate, Seattle area Apple store robbed of 436 iPhones in brazen act. Some guys literally tunneled into an iPhone store. Hashtag chutzpah. Out of futurism.com, new NASA director swears oath on Carl Sagan book instead of the Bible. She actively used a copy of Carl Sagan's Little Blue Dot as her swear-in book. So good for her. Out of the insider.com, A programmer built an AI Furby using ChatGPT for, quote, complete domination over humanity, end quote. And millennials are both fascinated and horrified. And of course, out of Deadline.com, Simon & Schuster imprint wins bidding war for twist-filled memoir by U.S. intelligence officer tangled up in mysterious military program. And of course, all of the news that is fit to print is always right there on the Curious Realm Facebook group, folks. Stop on by, join the conversation while you are there. Of course, stop on by CuriousRealm.com. That is where you can find all the episodes. That's where you can tune in live and where you can share your story. CuriousRealm.com/story. Our guest for this segment, the amazing Mary Joyce. She is the head of SkyshipsOverCashers.com. She is also the author of Spy in the Sky. We will be talking about the Shroud of Turin. Welcome back to the program, Mary Joyce. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. It's good to see you again.
Great to have you back on. I always love our conversations. And the topic tonight of the Shroud of Turin, as I told you before the show, is near and dear to my heart. It is really one of the first, I guess, points of fascination and mystery that I hit. When I was very young, I remember seeing a National Geographic that my grandfather had about it. And it just fascinated me. It was one of the lenticular covers that like changed whenever you moved it. And from that point on, I've been fascinated by this, regardless of if you believe it's true or not, ancient peace that is tied to the death and resurrection of Christ. Let's go ahead and get into the conversation here, Mary.
Okay. I'm all set. You want me to start running at the mouth?
Please.
Please, huh? Okay. For about 2,000 years, everybody thought that the Shroud was authentic. And then in 1988, they decided to do carbon testing. And they sent it to several different countries, and the results all came back that it was a medieval forgery. So that just, crushed the Christian world, and many people only remember the results of that carbon dating. Now, here is why it gets really tricky. Back in 1532, there was a fire in the chapel where the shroud was kept, and the shroud was kept in a silver chest. And the fire was so intense that it melted the chest, and it burned the edges or scorched the edges of the shroud. And it was the edges of the shroud that they had taken for this testing of carbon dated testing, and it all was, based on that. Well, the nuns had taken that, and they took the shroud and they put a new backing on it. They put patches on it, and because of all the smoke from the fire, it gave us a very false reading of the actual date. Since then, there has been a ton of really scientific research that has shown that, yes, there are good reasons to think that this is a real thing. And let me just bore you just a tiny bit with the kind of institutions that have analyzed this at a very scientific level. The Los Alamos National Scientific Laboratories, NASA, the Sandia Laboratories, the U.S. Air Force Weapons Laboratories, the Brooks Institute of Photography, and a whole bunch of world-respected universities in the U.S., Europe, and the Middle East. So this is not something based on just one person's study. It's based on the results of many scientists doing the work. Now, of course, on the surface, even somebody who would try to forge it could try to duplicate the description of Jesus based on the Bible. And yes, the shroud shows the puncture wounds in his head from the crown of thorns, which was actually more like a helmet of thorns. All the wounds that are mentioned in the Bible are shown in the shroud in some way or another. But perhaps the kind of evidence that convinces people more is what they found at the microscopic level. And one man who was, he was a criminologist from Switzerland and a botanist. And he studied it, and he took regular old adhesive tape and started picking up debris from the shroud, and then he would analyze what he found in this debris under a microscope. And 75% of the debris on the shroud, according to his research, was from the remains of plants found in Palestine. Now, that's a pretty high percentage. But for him, the most convincing thing was he found pollen from the tumbleweed thistle that only blooms in and around Israel, and it only blooms between March and May, which helps confirm the April date for the crucifixion.
Wow.
So that's just one example of the microscopic studies that have been done to prove that there may be real reasons to believe that this is authentic.
Well, and, there has been radiological testing done, all kinds of things. Once again, like you said, Lawrence Livermore Labs. I mean, there are all kinds of tests that have been done, and many, many hypotheses of possibilities of how, if this is a true article, how it would have been created. And yes, there are many who claim that this is one of the many lost masterworks of someone like Leonardo da Vinci, who was known for some very, very obscure painting styles, things like that. And there have been I would say, probably next to the Great Pyramids, there have probably been just about as many attempts to recreate the making of the Shroud of Turin.
Right, and that's why this microscopic evidence, which is certainly more extensive than what I just said, helps prove that it's real. For example, how many people would know that the Hebrews had a tradition back at that time of making their burial cloth out of cotton and linen woven together? I guess it was unique to the Hebrews at that time. Well, the shroud is made that way. And it's made from a type of cotton that is only found in that region of the world. It's called Levant cotton. So that's another type of microscopic evidence. Another one is with the blood. I believe it was type AB negative, but only 3% of the world population has that type of blood, which is a small amount. But 18% of those are from northern Palestine, and that is where Nazareth is located. So that's another piece of kind of interesting, information.
Yeah, and once again, even showing here, I pulled up from the Shroud.com, which is the active website for the Shroud of Turin. They have an amazing library. Imagine that. Of documentation of the many, many things that have been done. And this is a lot of the microscopic evidence that whenever you start going through the blood stains, things like that, and exactly how deep those penetrate into the fiber, it's pretty remarkable.
It goes beyond just being a surface painting, which would be quite different. As I told you before we actually got on the show, at the very last minute, but just in time for Easter, I posted something on my Facebook page. I have to have greater lead time to get it on the website, so I just went with the Facebook page. And I got a number of responses, but one I'd like to share with you, and I'll just read it to you. She said, I have been interested in the Shroud of Turin since 1979 when working for one of the largest photographic labs on the East Coast in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I was employed as a photo restoration artist. Barry and Homer, which was the company she worked for, received the contract to reproduce photos of the Shroud for its members in the Shroud of Turin project. I had never seen such detailed photos and was convinced the image was a miracle since its most significant details were in the negative image. You can't fake that. And then she came up with some stuff that was new to me, and I have not had the time yet to really confirm this, but I will read it to you. Since then, I have watched some of the most informative videos on YouTube in scientific analysis of the 2,000-year-old textile, using the most sophisticated techniques in spectral light, scanned imaging, and 3D mapping in the last few years. The most extraordinary artifacts on the human figure itself are shown: a necklace, a girdle or a belt of a rabbi, and a floral wreath placed on the head before burial. And her final paragraph was, also, DNA of the blood was found to be AB negative, and from the maternal line to an ancient sect of Hebrews that well could account for Jesus having light eyes and light reddish brown hair. And so I thought that was a pretty interesting response.
Wow.
It went beyond what you normally get on a Facebook comment.
Yeah. Yeah, I am very, very detailed. And, once again, yes. I mean, there is a reason why MUFON doesn't accept a lot of digital photographs. And that's because they're too easily faked.
Right.
Like she said in her comment, photographic negatives and information in them is really hard to fake, and whenever you have like a hard photograph of something, it picks up details that digital just doesn't. One is a representation of what's there. The other is what's there. And it's really interesting whenever you start going through and examining once again because you can look at especially the rear of the Christ figure here and see the number of lash marks that are there. Everything else, the detail that is there in the photographic negative of the shroud is absolutely detailed and intense.
And now I'll jump back under the microscope again. I'm going to give you maybe two more things,
please,
of that kind of support. And one is they found little tubulus of oak. And the oak tree is certainly grown in many parts of the world, but it was the most common tree in Palestine during the 1st century and the most likely wood used in making the crucifixion crosses. So in the blood itself, they found these little tubulus of oak, which, is who, if somebody was going to fake it, who would come up with that one? I think that's really, really strange.
Yeah, especially of the same kind of oak.
Yeah.
And once again, even to have the microscopic evidence of the pollen, that kind of stuff. That and I am not saying that there are not forgers out there. That, I mean, granted, 15th century forgers.
They wouldn't have had all the tricks that we had to.
No, most definitely. And once again, for those that are of the mind that Lost Art of Leonardo, he definitely did a lot of really advanced stuff, even to the point of some photographic negative type work. But whenever you look at especially the hyper realistic, I don't know if you have seen the actual statue that has been made of the wounded Christ from the Shroud of Turin.
Right. I've seen pictures of it, obviously. I have not seen the actual thing.
Yeah. It is.
It's remarkable what they could do just by using the image from the Shroud. It truly is amazing.
Yeah, and once again, just to look at, to A/B the image of the Shroud's negative with that is remarkably accurate. And really kind of horrifying to consider that was the case, or that happened. Now, there are a lot of theories, once again, when it comes to the Shroud of Turin, one of them being that it's kind of a photographic negative that was created by the energy of Christ's, I guess, passing into the other realm, becoming fully God, fully man.
I'll tell you what.
And manifesting.
Let me give you two more things from the microscope, and then let's move to that one, okay?
Let's do it.
Because we'll keep it kind of grouped together just because my brain's working that way tonight.
Okay.
Two more samples of things found under the microscope. In the blood samples, they found traces of aloe and myrrh. Now, it's pretty commonly known that those were used to anoint a body after death. And so maybe that isn't as convincing as some of the others. But then there's stuff where they analyzed the dirt, the dust that was found in the shroud. And it contained something called, I hope I pronounce it right, travertine aragonite. That's probably wrong.
No,
but
you are correct.
It is a type of mineral.
Yep.
And this particular mineral is unique to that region that Jesus was from. So again, I don't care if you're a good faker. How could you get all these things to be in this and have it just be a superficial, rendering? It would just take a bloody genius.
Yeah, it absolutely would. And just so you know, folks, there's some travertine aragonite right there. As a rocks and minerals fiend, I actively have some travertine, or aragonite rather. But travertine, often used in decorative work, things like that. Very frequently. I
can't swear
used.
to this, but I think some of the steps to the temple and things were made of that. Of course, it was a common stone in that area, so it would make sense. But there must be different kinds of this aragonite because somehow they were able to pinpoint it to that particular region, and I'm sure it must exist in other parts of the world too.
Oh, sure. I mean, aragonite it's kind of like saying calcite. It's a very common mineral, but
Are you a geologist?
No, I am a rocks and minerals fiend. I have been into rocks and minerals since I was in 7th grade. I collect rocks and minerals. I go out and rock hound and all kinds of things.
Because you whip that information off rather quickly.
Thank you. I'm sitting here in front of my chunk of meteorite as we speak.
All right.
But yeah, it is a pretty common mineral out there. But the interesting thing is, with modern science especially, we can drill down to specific regions, especially when you're talking about things like lead, that kind of stuff. Like we can get down to square mileage as to where those things were mined. So it's pretty remarkable what we can find out. And yes, to be able to pinpoint the dust from travertine aragonite and
in that area.
Yeah, that is absolutely possible.
So, well, since we're kind of on this crucifixion thing, you wanted to go another direction.
Well, no. You said you had
go
a
ahead.
couple
I'm
things
done.
left.
I'm done with the microscope. Go right ahead and go. Take me where you want me to go.
well, once again, the radiative burst concept, the idea of this imprint on the cloth being made from the irradiation of Christ as he was assumed body and soul, as he transformed and transfigured before the resurrection.
Is there any chance you have that image of the shadows of people who were instantly killed in Japan? Do you have that?
Yes.
Why don't you pull that up so people can see it? Okay. These, believe it or not, there are places in Japan where Hiroshima, where the nuclear bomb went off in 1945, and it created permanent shadows around the city where people were just killed in their tracks. And this is one of them where you can see three people or the shadows of three people from that explosion. Many people feel that the shroud the image was created by a sudden burst of energy that might be something like this, that will leave an image behind. I don't know how to deal with that exactly, but it certainly makes you wonder.
It is definitely a decently sound hypothesis whenever you're good, because I am a person of faith. I will never deny the Christ story, despite knowing what I know of, usurpation of things for the birth of Christ, things like that. The facts of Christ being alive, having lived, having taught, having died, the facts of the Easter story, all pretty well there, as attested to by Josephus, other people throughout history. So what we're left with is, A, big question of faith, B, a big question of science. And it's really interesting how we have had over the last decade or so numerous things pop up, Mary, from the possible ossuary of Joseph of Arimathea, all kinds of things that have kind of teetered right on the verge of there's where Jesus was buried. And of course there are the Church of the Holy Sepulchre has been there for hundreds and hundreds of years in the Holy Land.
I should probably mention that some of this information that I've mentioned is included in a book that I've done, and the short title is simply Tangible Evidence of Jesus. The long title is Tangible Evidence of Jesus Left Behind for Us to Find. And basically, I get this, it includes the kind of information we've been talking about, and archaeological finds and different things that really give support to the reality that this man really, really did exist. And there's a book called The Jesus Discovery by James Tabor. It was released back in 2012. And he was at the time that he wrote the book, was the chairman of the Department of Religious Studies at the University of North Carolina. And he's been the author of a number of books. But anyhow, I include his information in my book. And at the time of Jesus, there would be family tombs, and they would literally dig them into like a hillside. And when you would enter them, there would be like a square cut, almost like a vestibule or a opening area. And then on three sides, left, right, and straight ahead, there would be what I call niches, and they would bury people first in an ossuary, which was a small box, and then those ossuaries would be put into these niches. The most important person was always buried to the right of the entranceway. And the ossuary in that position is etched with the inscription, of course this is in English, Jesus, son of Joseph. Interestingly, there are two other ossuaries in that same niche. The name, it was a name for Mary Magdalene, was on one, and on the other one, it was etched, Jude, son of Jesus. Then in the other niches, that's just the first one to the right. In the other niches, there were other people who were well known to Jesus, including his, I think it was brother James. And so it gives support that that was where he finally ended up bodily being buried. That seems to be in conflict with the idea of him just vaporized. There's a gap between the two, but both things exist. And so it does make you wonder.
Well, and once again, having been brought up Roman Catholic, it is an intrinsic part of the faith, one of the many pillars, that he was assumed body and soul into heaven. And there's been a lot of statements from the church over the last many years, especially when it comes to, life beyond, life outside of our realm of knowledge, and even alien life, saying, any existence of that does not negate the salvific act of Christ, or, the saving of souls, or anything like that. I guess the real question comes to bear is, if there is an ossuary of Christ, that does kind of get rid of one of the many pillars of faith, of assumed body and soul.
All I can say is that I see the soul as being something that comes in and inhabits a physical body.
Oh, absolutely.
And exists, outside that body once it's not in there.
Yeah.
So it's possible that maybe somehow or another both things were true, that he was so instantly transformed into spirit that it created this burst of like a mini nuclear burst that caused the image on the but perhaps the bones were left.
Indeed. And even in the resurrection stories, whenever you look at I guess really after the stone is rolled away, the first people that you really hear about are the disciples on the road, Cleopas and the other disciple, who have dinner with Christ, and after the breaking of the bread, he just disappears.
Right.
And they'd been walking and talking with him all day and never realized that it was him amongst them.
Spirit, especially one as powerful as Jesus, could become very tangible for people to see and feel.
Sure.
And then go right back into spirit form. I mean, there's examples of that beyond Jesus.
Oh, absolutely. And, numerous whenever it comes to spiritual leaders across time, across numerous religions. So I do not doubt that whatsoever, nor the concept of the assumption of Christ and the transformation that would happen in the tomb, and what would be here as remnant of that. You even have the cloth of Veronica that is out there.
Why don't you explain what that is for people?
The cloth of Veronica is similar to the Shroud of Turin, except for the fact that it was what Christ used to wipe his face as he was carrying the cross during the Passion. Veronica came up, offered. I've heard
a slightly different angle on that. That what they did was they essentially would take something like a napkin, the size of a napkin. Mm-hmm. They would cover the face with that when somebody was buried, and that image was the same thing as the shroud, except it was the part that was over his face. I have no idea, but that's out there also.
Yeah, and that is one of them that. Right up along the same roads is, how was it created, and is it what is claimed? These things, once again, I believe all come down to faith, Mary. There is a lot of scientific evidence with the shroud. There really is. At the same token, there is a lot of scientific evidence that they have not been able to gather from the shroud because, well, they aren't really allowing a lot more study to be done. As far as snipping little pieces off of it, things like that.
By the way, I don't think most people would know this because I had to do a lot of research to discover it for myself. And Jesus was treated as a criminal. When criminals died, what they did was basically just throw them into a pit and cover them over. If anybody who was Arimathea came and claimed his body, and so he wasn't, thrown into the pit like most people would be. But it wasn't just because he was a rich man. He had to be related somehow.
Yeah.
And he is, I believe it's a great uncle of Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's why the burial tomb that I was just talking about is so close to the one for Joseph of Arimathea. And the connection with him and Jesus is really very extensive. But he could not have claimed the body if he wasn't somehow next of kin.
Yeah. If he wasn't within the familial line, things like that. And once again, even whenever that happened, it was scurried away. They had to hurriedly do things. They did not get to go through the typical long Jewish rites of burial because they were getting ready for the Sabbath.
Right.
So, he died in the middle of the afternoon, and they had a scant couple of hours before sundown started and the Sabbath began. And once that happened, there was no preparation of body. There was none of that. And yes, Christ would have been thrown into the mass grave with every other criminal that was there. Because of course, if the Romans, while they were quite barbaric in the way that they treated criminals and the way that they publicly punished people, as public example, they fully understood religious right. They fully understood those things. And not only did they allow local populace to practice their local faith, but made sure that those things would happen. So if somebody claimed a body that was crucified, they would absolutely let them have it, to go carry forth any religious rite of burial for the family, things like that. But if you weren't claimed, that's a different story.
Right.
And yeah, it was really, really interesting to see how Joseph of Arimathea stepped forward, and that happened once again in very, very short fashion.
Because he was right there.
Yeah.
And let's see if I can get this straight for you. Joseph of Arimathea was the brother of Mary's father. So Joseph of Arimathea was her uncle, the youngest brother of her father. And so he was the great uncle to Jesus. And so he would have been there probably through the whole thing.
Yeah, precisely. And would have been witness to the whole ordeal, everything leading up to it. It really is, once again, one of the most moving stories, whether you ascribe to it religiously or not. It is an amazingly moving story to read any of the accounts of the Passion of Christ, and to see what are considered to be relics. They're classified as relics by the church because of their age and antiquity, and their provenance. However, they are not considered, they have no miraculous seal upon them. They aren't like the numerous Eucharistic miracles that hold the papal seal on it. That kind of stuff, because there is still quite a bit of study to be done. But there's a basilica, there's a church. Like I said, I went, there, it was not out on display whenever I went, because
they only do that periodically.
Yeah. It's not out constantly.
It's probably to help preserve it.
Yeah. Because they've realized that even though, yes, it's behind glass, it's behind UV protective glass, like there's still UV that gets to it. There's still damage that happens. Environmentally.
By the way, you seem to be quite a student of these kind of things. If you haven't already, you might want to learn more about Joseph of Arimathea. Not only did he have the family connection, but he actually worked for Rome. He was the nobilis decurio for the mining region in Britain. And so he would make regular voyages, to the southern, let's see, it would be the southeastern portion of England, where the mines were. And there are stories of Jesus as a young boy going with Joseph of Arimathea to the British Isles. And there are, one legend says Joseph and Jesus often anchored their ship in a harbor at the mouth of the Camel River so they could go ashore to get water for their ship. And near that harbor is a spring that to this day is known as the Jesus Well. And there are there are crosses in parts of England that are unique to any in the world, and they show Jesus as a young boy. And the reason I say young boy is because he had the short, I don't know what their clothing was called, but they like wearing short pants. And, a grown man didn't at that time. And so they would show him in the form of a cross, but clearly a young boy. And one of the things that I find fascinating is that there's a tiny chapel that was built in ancient times over this Jesus Well. Well, a golf course has been built all around that, and it's called the Indadoc Golf Course. And there is this square hole in the middle of a fairway, and into that hole is this little tiny stone chapel that covers the Jesus Well. So they play golf all around it, which I think is kind of humorous in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know a bit about Joseph of Arimathea because, of course, he goes into Grail tradition. There are numerous stories of Joseph of Arimathea bringing the Holy Grail to the UK, to Britain. And I mean, there's the whole blood spring, where he's supposed to have buried the Grail. And that's why all of the water runs red like blood, all kinds of things. So it's interesting to see, that because there are even stories of course, Mary Magdalene going to France, with the bloodline of Christ. And once again, I don't see how any of that would, conflict with the salvific acts of Christ, as we call them, whatsoever. I think it would, as a matter of fact, be very odd for anybody named rabbi or anybody considered to be a rabbi at that time, according to Jewish faith, to not be betrothed to somebody, to not have a wife, even if a common law wife.
You could not be a rabbi.
Yeah.
And be single.
Yeah.
You had to be married to be a rabbi.
Exactly.
He has been called rabbi, and there's even a word which will not come to me now, I know, but it's like a higher level of rabbi that he was sometimes called. Yeah. And so, yeah. Yeah. But that doesn't, he came to live like human beings. He was supposed to be the example of God expressing himself fully through a human being, to be a teaching example for all of us. Well,
and, once again, I want to thank you for coming on, because when I saw your post this weekend, it really did a lot for me to see the post about the Shroud of Turin and all of the tangible evidence that was found. There's the post right there from your actual timeline about the thistle, the pollen, everything else. And I think it was honestly fate that the guest that I had scheduled tonight canceled, because
perhaps we needed to talk about all this, right?
Yeah. It's a perfect time of year. We're right here at the time when supposedly the Shroud was created. It is once again an enduring mystery and an incredible mystery of faith. that is out there for many people. It's truly something interesting to go through and look at historically, even the way that the cloth was revered for as long as it was before it was squirreled away, because it traded hands numerous times amongst high royalty as a holy relic from the Holy Land. So, yeah.
Well, so have we covered most of what we need to cover on this one? Or
I think so, Mary.
Okay, all right. Enjoy talking to you.
Well, always enjoy talking to you as well. Before I let you go, of course, let everybody know where they can go to keep track of Skyship Over Cachers, where they can go to keep up with all of your work, where they can go to buy your books, everything else.
Okay. Everything is on the website. It's called skyshipsovercachers.com. If you go to Editor's Corner on the home page, it's the second to the top thing, and you open that up. There's some of the programs that I've been on, different videos, but also at the very bottom, I've got a description of all 5 of the books that I have in print right now, and all the books are available through Amazon. And as far as Facebook which is how you discovered I did this, you can find it 2 ways. It's just Mary A. Joyce without a period after the middle initial, Mary A. Joyce. That's probably the easiest. Or just type in skyshipsovercachers.com in the Facebook search bar, and you can find it that way also.
All right. Well, Mary, once again, thank you as always for your time, and especially on such short notice. This was literally arranged at about 3:00 this afternoon.
Which is the reason we have good excuses if we stuttered around, right?
That's right. That's right. But it was a great conversation about an incredible topic, and I would love to have you on again to talk about it more. As always, take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you soon, Mary.
Okay, you take care.
All right.
Good night.
Wow. Some really incredible stuff about the Shroud of Turin. It is a remarkable piece of history, whether it's real, whether it's a piece of art. I think what's important is the way it moves people, as art period should be ranked is the case. And before we go to commercial, a little, I guess, disclaimer before we move on to the next segment, because the next segment will be a little bit heavier, folks. We're going to be talking about improprieties by the Dalai Lama, one of the most predominant religious leaders in the world, what it is to be a religious leader in this modern day and age, what it is to be an accountable religious leader, what's an inappropriate joke for a religious leader, what's the double standard when we're talking about this, and why is the double standard existing? So we'll be getting into that and so much more with our good friend, Archbishop James Cloud, right after these messages.
With the rise in attention to the health benefits of cannabis and cannabinoids, including CBD, True Hemp Science has become one of the premier providers of full-spectrum CBD and CBD-related products. Using a proprietary spagyric process, True Hemp Science extracts maximum benefit from the whole hemp plant. Buds, leaves, stems, seeds, even roots. Every part of the plant is used and then reused to formulate a rich, complex profile of CBD, CBD derivatives, and terpenes guaranteed to provide the relief and benefits you need daily. Visit TrueHempScience.com to experience the best CBD oils, edibles, and topicals on the market today. And use code CURIOUS7 to save 7% off your entire purchase of $50 or more and get 2 25-milligram CBD cookies or brownies free. That website again is TrueHempScience.com, and the code is CURIOUS7. Have you considered starting a podcast? Looking for a way to make your business a voice of authority in an industry? Then Podcast Cadet is the solution for you. Whether starting a podcast for yourself, your brand, business, school, church, or just plain fun, Podcast Cadet is here to help you navigate the waters of the podcast industry. Specializing in one-on-one consultation and training with industry professionals in fields ranging from podcast technology and editing to distribution, monetization, and even social media strategies. Podcast Cadet tailors their services to the specific needs of you and your podcast. Do you already have a podcast and trying to find ways to engage and grow your audience? Sign up for your Podcast Cadet audit today and let us help you explore new and exciting ways to leverage your content and elevate your podcast brand to whole new levels. From consultational workshops to affordable podcast production and maintenance packages, Podcast Cadet is your one-stop shop for everything podcast-related on the internet. Visit podcastcadet.com today to sign up for your consultation or training and use code CURIOUS20 to save 20% off your entire purchase. That website again is podcastcadet.com. The Curious Realm Podcast is your source for the latest and greatest news and events in the world of the paranormal, esoteric, and forbidden knowledge. And there's no better way to spark the conversation than with items from the Curious Realm store. Choose from fan favorites like hoodies, mouse pads, coffee mugs, and more. Buy books and items from your favorite Curious Realm guests. Get your hands on the latest gear for paranormal investigations and experiments we discuss on the show. Open your web browser and stop on by the Curious Realm store at curiousrealm.com/store to buy the latest Curious Realm wear and out-of-this-world gifts for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is curiousrealm.com/store. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome back. Thank you so much to all of our sponsors, especially True Hemp Science. I got these in the mail today, and let me tell you, they're new gummies, folks. Out of control, out of pocket. Stop on by, check them out. TrueHempScience.com is the website. Go check out their moon dust gummies. Chris Lynch gave me a sample of their moon dust powder about a year or so ago, last time he was on, and was telling me that they were having it made into gummies. Amazing stuff. Literally the only CBD oil I trust across the country as I travel. So stop on by and get yours today. TrueHempScience.com is the website. Curious7 is the code to get your percentage off. Our guest in this segment is Archbishop James Cloud. He is
the author of Walking with Ghosts and Memoirs of the Paranormal. We're talking with him today. We aren't talking about our normal topics of exorcism, demonology, things like that. I guess maybe to an extent we're talking the roots of some of that. But what we're talking about today is the appropriateness of clergy in a modern era, and mainly in response to the recent videos of the Dalai Lama encouraging a young child, very young child, to kiss him on the lips, to then invites the boy to suck his tongue. And any cultural things aside, what have you, this video that I'm playing right now is off the Daily Mail page on YouTube. You can find this video all over the place. It's pretty well uncut. And I guess the issue that comes to bear is I myself spent many, many years in the world of youth ministry, things like that. And I cannot say that this would have ever occurred in my line of ministry. Welcome back to the show, Archbishop. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing all right. Let's go ahead and get into this, because once again, it's a delicate situation, I think, and I think it's one that a lot of people are coming at from different angles, different directions. Where do you fall with this, Archbishop?
Well, the appropriateness of it was highly inappropriate. Any clergyman of any faith or any leader, politician, or whatever, because we could name hundreds of politicians that have done similar things. All of it is inappropriate. I mean, but especially with a young child, I've always been I like to hug, but I always gauge the other person's, because some people, they don't like that, or it might revisit trauma or something like that. And so I always am ready for a hug, but also a handshake, whatever's they're most comfortable with. But in this case, it's never even remotely entered my mind to kiss a kid on the lips and then ask the kid to suck my tongue. I mean, we're talking about French kissing. I mean, let's just put it, what the Dalai Lama was wanting was a French kiss from this little boy.
Well, I mean, that is definitely one of the steps to it. And, a lot of people especially play off the ooh moment at the end after the kid actively does put his lips on the Dali's tongue.
Sure.
It's not like the incident doesn't happen, or like he says it and then as it goes to happen, he's like, oh, I'm just playing.
Yeah.
And that's just it. Once again, I spent many, many years in youth ministry. I remember when it became the time where I had to be in the office where me and the youth minister together, her female, me, the assistant youth minister being male, we had to be in the office together after a junior high dance when a kid was left late. One of us could not give them a ride home. We couldn't be in the room alone with them. This was just the general rigmarole of a church, after the Veritas movement, things like that. And when I first started in youth ministry, that kind of stuff, there were definite, like, hey, do this, don't do that. But once again, side hugs. I don't know how many side hugs I get. One-armed hugs. Hey, how you doing, hon? Things like that, because of any appearance of impropriety.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've always had it as a thing for myself, just like you were saying. If there's a kid or a female that is coming into to my office or something for counseling, 9 times out of 10, there's usually a female, whether it be a Eucharistic minister or someone else, they're with me, and we try to make it light, safe for the individuals, so that, I know within myself I'd never hurt anyone or do anything weird like that, but it's for them, to reassure them, hey, I'm here for you, but I'm not.
Yeah.
But, boiling it down to the lowest denominator, I'm not a predator. And I want folks that I work with to know that. And I have always done that.
And once again, I am a former Catholic seminarian, spent years as a Catholic youth minister, and that is the first thing that comes to mind. I mean, heck, right now, amongst all of this, we're talking about a parish in Maryland that was just found where they had people rotating in and out for decades that they were hiding.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, that's local bishops. That is not every priest. Nobody's saying that the Dali Lama likes little boys. Not saying that. Not saying anything to his proclivities or anything like that. What I am saying is that if any teacher at my son's school right now who is about to turn 6, if any teacher at my son's school, encouraged a kid to hop on over, give me a kiss on the cheek. No, give me one on the lips. And if any one of them did that, they'd be lucky to keep a job.
Yep, absolutely.
And once again, not saying anything about the Dalai Lama. My question is, as a religious leader, what standard do we hold him to? Because the men who wear collars over here in the rest of the world, we hold to an extremely high standard, an extraordinarily high standard. And we cannot, granted, yes, there are cultures in the world. Hop on over to Italy. Hop on over to France. Men say hi and kiss on the side of the mouth. No problem. I got no problem kissing one of my friends hi whenever I say hi to him or bye to him. That's a cultural thing. However, asking a child to kiss you on the lips, and then to suck your tongue is not a cultural thing. I don't know of a culture around where that's part of the greeting procedure.
I can't think of one either.
And a lot of it is brought up to the fact of, once again, the playful little like, oh, go away at the end of all of it. Like, oh, I can't believe you did that. And the fact of, yes, the Dalai Lama is known to have a sense of humor. He's known to be playful. He's known to, hey, you want to meet Helen Mirren and ask her to suck your tongue? Feel free. She's a grown person. That might be kind of funny. But I'd venture to say that with the age of the child shown, and they don't show his face, but it's reported to be between 10, 12, maybe. I don't know. I'd venture a guess that probably like, hey, give me a hug. Now pull my finger. Might be about as far as you might want to take it. And I don't know. It's interesting to see the reaction now. This event did not just happen. This is nothing new. This event happened in February. Was when the actual event happened with that he was at in India and everything else. So this has been out for a couple months and just hit circulation in the news and has gone, once again, kind of bombastic.
Yeah. Well, the thing when it comes down to it as well, it can be easily seen as an abuse of power. So when people look at spiritual leaders or whatnot, like we both agreed, people hold spiritual leaders in high esteem and whatnot. They're very loath not to do what they say if they're a devout follower of that individual.
Sure.
Or you can look at cult leaders. Invariably, they say, "Oh, let's all, pound on a drum and do whatever," and then all of a sudden, "Oh, now I need everyone's wives to come visit me at night," kind of thing. It's an abuse of power.
Yeah.
In its raw sense. He might not have meant it that way, which, I've never seen him act wrongly until now.
Yeah.
So, it might be, benefit of the doubt, devil's advocate. He was really just playing. Maybe he was surprised the kid actually did it, but the abuse comes in just even asking for a kid to do that.
Yes.
I mean, what was the kid to do? He was in front of everyone, right in front of the Dalai Lama.
I'm not going to say that he is a devout follower, but guaranteed his parents are. Probably why the underage kid is there. Guess where we're going today? The Dali's in town.
Yeah, and the kid's like, I wanted to go kick the can down the street, but okay, sounds good.
Yeah, precisely. And once again, yes, it may have been meant and intended in all fun and all jest and all play. That does not mean that the impropriety does not exist.
Correct.
And I mean, ask a prime example would be, I could probably Google it right now. Hold on. I'm going to Google number of inappropriate touching cases in Texas schools 2022. Let's see what that result is. Nearly 350 K to 12 educators arrested on child sex crimes. Yeah. I mean, there's literally almost, if you go and look it up, there is almost a case a day. And
that's insane.
Yeah. Now, granted,
and it's bad.
Texas is a big state. But when you start breaking that down, that's a case a day. Like, that's a lot. That's too many.
Absolutely.
And now, granted, that does not mean that there was sexual intercourse with the kid. That does not mean that, kids were invited to suck a tongue. That could literally be the case of the band teacher is alone with Molly while he's waiting for the parents to come pick him up. That includes cases like that where, like, the cheerleader squad instructor took one of the cheerleaders home, and drove them home. Those are all inappropriate things. And that's what we have to look at here. It's not the fact of touching, molestation, or anything like that. It's the impropriety, as you said, of the power instituted in him.
Yeah. People don't understand that. There's power differentials, because just like I'm a mental health professional too. Mm-hmm. And even in therapy, you have to be cognizant of the fact that there's power differentials between the therapist and the client. And you can't abuse that additional place of power to your advantage, whether it be sexual, financial, or anything like that. Because think about it this way. That kid standing in front of the audience, in front of the Dalai Lama, think of all of the pressure from his parents, from the people, and everything else.
Yeah, the expectation.
To act right and do what the Dalai Lama says. That's a complete abuse. Even if it was a joke, he was trying to be funny, it was not funny. And it was, you know, if it was anyone else, if it was a teacher or something else, we would just call it grooming.
If it was the
You
Pope.
know?
If it was the Pope.
Think about if it was the Pope. The world would be up
Literally.
in arms. You know, there'd one be out with
If it was the head of Israel. If it was the head of the Jewish faith.
Yeah.
You know, if it was one of the main imams of Islam.
Yeah.
Now, granted, a lot of the groups that would be upset at all of those are upset at this. However, as you are pointing out, and as I tend to agree, I believe that there is quite the double standard going on here. And I mean, once again, people have brought a lot of it to cultural difference. Find me the culture where sucking a tongue is a normal or funny thing. Where like, you know, they got sketches based on it, you know, in their comedy, where they got moral stories about it. Where they tell, cause like, hey, my son watches this weird show, Gudetama, about a lazy egg. You know what? Come to find out, there is a whole cultural trope in Japanese culture about the lazy egg. So
interesting.
I may think it's weird. There's a whole cultural trope about it, about the Gudetama. They're like, don't be the Gudetama. Don't be the lazy egg. You get your stuff done now. You know, I don't know of one about tongue sucking.
Yeah,
I really don't.
You know, I think in every culture that's a bit sketchy, to put it mildly.
Well, and once again, even if meant as a joke, a fully inappropriate joke, no different than the former leader of our country who made more than one, oh, you know, I was joking. Well, that was a pretty inappropriate joke, dude.
Yeah.
And if we're going to call that out, you know, no different than we should call out every strange sniff by our sitting president.
Sure.
It's an odd habit. I don't know. I've never found the overwhelming urge to smell somebody as I
can't
greet
say
them.
I walk around sniffing kids, you know. That's just not something that enters my little pea brain.
Yeah. And that's just it, you know. At what point is the normalization? You know, at what point is it okay to, you know, grab people on both sides of the face when you say hi, things like that. And yes, there are a couple points during the video with the Dali Lama where you can see the kid kind of trying to pull away and the Dali's pulling him closer, you know. And I don't once again think that there is any sexual proclivity there, anything like that. However, as a sitting leader of a religion in the free world, and one of the most looked to religious leaders out there, not a good look.
No, it really isn't. And people will naturally, you know, see that, and then people wonder, you know, hey, has he done it to other kids in quote unquote jokes, or is this something he does behind closed doors? Is it something he does with the disciples that he has, or the monks, or, you know, people wonder. There's natural questions that come up that can completely destroy a person, even if it's, you know, a jest, a joke. Well, you think of the inappropriateness of, like, some of the incidents of sexual harassment in the workplace. You know, slapping someone on the butt, even guys slapping each other on the butt, that can be sexual harassment. But it's done in a jest, a joke, just, hey, buddy, you know. Yeah. But that, one, it's inappropriate in the workplace. But then you amplify that by 1,000 when you're a leader of a religious movement. You know, there has to be standards by which folks agree upon, that if you, in these situations, if you're in your own house, you're just playing around with your family or friends or what, that's different. I mean, don't think I'd ever ask my best bud to suck my tongue. I think that would be, he and I would both kind of puke a little bit in our mouths, but
weird things happen with drugs.
Oh yeah.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug.
Uh-huh. Well, you know what? Power's the most addictive drug.
Yeah.
And sometimes
absolutely.
when people have power, they do some of the most asinine and stupid things.
Well, and the article that I popped up just a minute ago, not many people may know Navixum, the cult that was here in America, founded in Albany, New York. It was for the longest time like a big, almost corporate training type thing, learning to empower yourself, all that. Come to find out, the leader was sexually branding a bunch of people. All kinds of documentaries have been made about it. The one on HBO is heart-wrenching and horrifying. But the article I had up was Dalai Lama was paid $1 million to endorse the sex cult.
Oh, wow.
He, the guy who founded Navixum, Nixium, went to the Dalai Lama with his teachings and what he was teaching people. And Dali was like, this is fantastic. This is a great teaching that you're doing with everybody. Now, granted, the Dalai Lama, and thereby he was endorsed by the Dalai Lama and could say that, Dalai Lama says this about our teachings. Come join the workshops. Many steps down the line up the pyramid scheme of spirituality and self-empowerment came, you come join this special branch and you'll get access to new things. And then they start asking you for, videotapes of yourself to hold as collateral to make sure that you keep with your oath. All kinds of stuff. Crazy things. But the Dalai Lama actively endorsed it. Once again, human, lapse in judgment, lapse in error, or lapse in truly vetting and checking something out. But also $1 million endorsement. So, $1 million goes a long way in a charity. And in what you do, I'm not saying that the Dalai Lama is like, rolling on 20-inch wheels, just trucking down the street in his Lama mobile. He's not the Pope.
Got the hoopty going with
he's not the Pope.
The sick beats dropping and bouncing over.
That's right.
Little LED lights all over.
But it does make a difference, and there's one thing to just endorsing something and saying, hey, somebody sent me a pamphlet and I thought this was really interesting. And I filled out their survey and was like, yeah, this seems really cool. And there's a difference when you get $1 million endorsement from them.
Sure.
I have
and
seen.
Devil's Advocate.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe in Devil's Advocate, maybe the leader of Navixum didn't tell him everything that went on.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So he might have been completely in the fog regarding the illicit activities of it.
Like even in the documentary, like you see him going and talking to the Dali and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty incredible because one of the guys that helped him found and spread it and do all the media and everything was the guy that actively created the movie What the Bleep Do We Know?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's that, but to come back to the Dalai Lama and the ideas that I am seeing rampant on social media. I mean, James, it's literally gotten to the point where I've seen people mentioning Illuminati. Not even joking. Not even joking. where it's like, oh, all the Illuminati are into pedophilia. It's like, yo, man, back it up like 33 degrees, okay? Because now it's too much. Now it's too much. Once again, if there was a history of this, I mean, hey, I would be more prone to say something about our sitting president when it came to such things than the Dali. Once again, all I am doing is calling out the fact of the full-on double standard going on. Full-on double standard. Once again, if that man carried a crozier and had a collar, you can bet right now torches would be lit, Archbishop.
Absolutely.
They would be lit.
Yep, absolutely they would.
We have to consider that. Like as a humanity, as a people, we have to ask her, and that's why I wanted to have you on to talk about this. When I asked my wife, because I was like, I've got to talk about it. I've got to cover it. I mean, it hits too many points of home for me and the work that I've done in my life with youth and kids and everything else. With the work that we do with people like Billy Joe Kane, who will be on the show soon, about human trafficking prevention, that kind of stuff. Because one of the people in my group popped off, the one that popped off about, hey, yeah, well, I've met the Dalai Lama. Billy said something about it and was like, I don't know, these are pretty grooming behaviors. And the other guy mentioned like, oh, did you read the article at all? Did you watch the video? This and that. And Billy was pretty much like, well, those with eyes can see.
Pretty obvious.
And I jumped to defense. I was like, hey, just so you know, Billy Joe Kane isn't just some dude. Like he is an expert when it comes to human trafficking prevention and grooming and things like that. Like that is what we have him on the show about. So, the thought form carries some weight. Let's just say. I'm not saying that's what it is, but the thought form carries some weight.
And especially in the modern age. I mean, we're sexualizing children, in the public schools, showing utterly explicit stuff. 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade. Yeah. They have, like, I don't know if I can even say it, but like oral, anal, all that other stuff. Available for the kids.
I don't know about that, but I definitely do know that we signed a form about sexual education.
Mm-hmm.
And my kid's in kindergarten.
Wow. See, that's people wonder why the world is the way it is. We dive into just utter debauchery, then we glamorize it, glorify it, teach it to our children, and then we wonder why our kids are so screwed up. I wonder why. It's such a grand mystery to me, and we sit back, we apologize for groomers and everyone else, and we just need to be progressive and blah, blah, blah. All the while, we're robbing these children of their childhood. We are sexualizing children way before their hormones and the, tween years and teen years kick in. And then we wonder why they're so confused. And then you have adult groups that glorify pedophilia. They glorify, NAMBLA, National Association of Man-Boy Love or something like that.
North American Man-Boy Love Association.
Yeah. And then, so it's no wonder people immediately it must be grooming. Well, if it looks like a duck, quacks like a duck, and, waddles, I think it probably is a duck. But at the same time, it frustrates me. I'm so old school, it's pathetic. I'm so traditional. Yeah, I know. I hide it so well. You know, I'm an enigma wrapped in a mystery.
I would expect nothing less from a man who wears a collar. I mean, there's quite a few forward-looking. I'm not saying you're not forward-looking. I'm not saying you are not accepting. Sure. I'm not saying that you are archaic in your thoughts or beliefs in any way, shape, or form. But as a church leader, I can imagine you would be prone to, you know, not necessarily a rigid thought form, but there's not a lot of shade of gray.
There really isn't. You know,
because, and I'm sorry, folks, but if you think that there is more shade of gray there, feel free to bring it in and feel free to allow that for every man that wears a collar as well.
Yep.
Because you're holding a high double standard if you're going to allow teachers to do it. You can't allow teachers to do it. You can't allow, you know, it's...
No.
At what point do we pull an all stop and say, hey, man, I don't care if you're from that generation. That is unacceptable.
Yep. Yeah. There has to be red lines you just do not cross.
Yeah.
And red lines just, in this day and age, they're pretty much gone. You know, it's anyone for anyone and go for it. And hey, as long as you ain't, quote unquote, hurting anybody, just, you know, wreck your own lives. It's great. But even at that, you know, as a bishop, it's not love to let a person destroy themselves.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, you know, if I saw my kiddos hurting themselves, I wouldn't go, well, they're on their own journey, I guess. You know, I'm not going to be doing that. I'm going to be like, dude, stop, knock it off. You want me to spank your butt or what?
Yeah.
And, you know, there's going to be red lines you don't cross. But this day and age, there just ain't nothing. And then again, why's the world so bad? Aren't we all supposed to have unicorns and fluffy bunnies? No, it don't work that way.
I'd love to see the big red words for that was promised. Anywhere. Even go to the Old Testament and look at the funny looking letters, you know, where God's speaking. Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's not promised anywhere. Closest thing would have been the Garden of Eden, and pretty sure we all know what we did there.
Yeah. Screwed that one up real good.
Whatever access we once had to the free fluffy bunnies, there's a fiery sword-wielding angel in the way of that path now. You ain't getting there.
Yeah. That cherubim doesn't take prisoners either.
That's right. But yeah, you know, it's hard, Father, because yes, I'm not going to judge the Dali. I won't.
No.
I won't. I don't judge anybody until proven guilty. Imagine that. Everybody's innocent.
But I will sit back and go, dude, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. I will say,
a good idea?
Wildly inappropriate.
Yep.
Wildly inappropriate. Once again, I can't call it a cultural difference because I don't know of a culture where that is appropriate and all right.
No. Correct. I can't recall one.
Maybe a generational difference of a grandpa saying, come here and sit on my knee, kid. You know, something like that.
Yeah, but I
still
don't know
not
of any
appropriate.
grandpas.
Still not appropriate. You know.
No, and I can't think of any grandpas that are going to tell their grandkids, "Come sit on my lap and suck my tongue."
Come suck my tongue. Yeah.
I mean, you have to be real.
Well,
it is what it is.
And once again, it being the Easter season, first thing that pops into my mind is clergy. Feel free to put the foot on the other foot and see where the shoe on the other foot and see where it drops. Because it would be square in where are the charges. And I'm not saying that we should levy charges against the Dalai Lama, anything like that, folks. But I will say that we need to be willing to hold everybody to the same standard globally, world over.
Yeah.
We tend to really, really think, even, you know, everything going on in the Middle East, everything going on in Saudi Arabia, when it comes to equal rights, women's rights, things like that. Horrible.
Yep.
Awful.
I do.
Fully a cultural difference.
Yeah.
Fully a cultural difference, and a cultural difference that we don't stand by. We don't abide that in this country. We don't. Nope. But apparently somehow, if this is a cultural difference, it needs some slack.
Yeah.
And,
well, you know, I think people tend to when people idolize certain individuals, we tend to make excuses for those individuals.
Yes.
And I think it goes back to the idea that if my idol, whoever that is somehow deficient, then my judgment is also deficient, and therefore I can't,
well, your judgment is no less human than that human himself. You know?
Yeah.
And yes, that can be hard for people to qualify. That can be hard for people to quantify. Like I myself have known people in the world that have had molestation charges levied against them. And here's the same exact response I give anybody that says everybody that wears a collar is a pedophile. No. Nope. Feel free to go look at any demographics, any numbers, things like that. The deviation of pedophile is the same between men of religion and men of the world. No difference.
Yep.
The difference is they're in a position of power. And for you to get to that point and wear that collar, you are a sociopath of a different sort, my friend. Because I know at least for the Catholic Church, you're going through 3 days of hardcore psychological exam before you're ever even considered a seminarian, before you ever step foot through a seminary door on a college campus. And then from that point forward, you have monthly formation meetings, monthly spiritual direction meetings, and those two people talk. And there's all kinds of words that are watchwords. So if you can make it through 9 to 12 years of that scrutiny and those kind of tests and those kind of psychological exams, you, my friend, are a sociopath.
Yeah.
You are a hardened sociopath. No different than somebody that wears the badge and does the same thing. No different than a fireman who gives kids a ride on the fire truck. Happens all over in America regularly.
Yep.
No different. You are a hardened sociopath. That's why the other firemen don't suspect you.
Yep, because a sociopath can, think of...
They're comfortable with their decision.
I'm trying to think of that serial killer.
Jeffrey Dahmer.
Who?
Jeffrey Dahmer.
No, not Dahmer. The other very prolific one in the late 70s, 80s. Oh my goodness, I can't think.
John
of his
Wayne
name,
Gacy?
No, obviously he was
a special sort himself.
Boy, but he was always the nice guy. He was always the helpful one. Hey, I can help you with anything, and people thought highly of him. Bundy.
Yes, Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy.
Yeah.
And he was as sick as the day is long.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And, it really is an examination in humanity. The period, as we say on the show regularly, the jump to the extreme. Just the readiness of people in our society to leap to the extreme. Just jumping without looking, no idea what's in the water underneath them. And it's kind of frightening. It's kind of frightening because once again, I've seen many a people putting the pitch on the torches about it. I'm not saying that's the case. I'm saying the man needs some better handlers, and needs as somebody who preaches the concept of forethought and being present in thought, needs to be a bit more present in thought in his actions and how he forms himself on a public stage. Because that just, yeah.
It was just no bueno.
Well, and once again, the non-reticence of the child to comply, like you said earlier, that is the troubling part, is the normalization of such things for a child of that age. And that is another reason why I wanted to speak with you tonight, is because you do work in the world of social work. You do deal with people who have been through traumatic experiences that lead to their addictions later in life, things like that. Not saying this kid's going to have, full-on traumatic experiences in his life from it. But, yeah, you really do have to be willing to apply the same coat of paint to all surfaces, You
do. Everyone needs to be held accountable equally.
Yeah.
And to, everyone makes bad decisions, but this is like one of the worst decisions amongst bad decisions, kind of, to put it that way. But everyone deserves to have the benefit of the doubt until that doubt is removed completely.
Yeah.
And just like our justice system, justice should be blind in the United States. I mean, that's why the justice statue has a blindfold on.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of ethnicities, men, women, etc., that are guilty before proven innocent.
The court of public opinion just about reigns supreme, my friend.
Absolutely, and the mass media backs it up.
Yeah,
because it sells airtime.
Well, that's just it. Like even the fact of arrest reports, things like that. Like none of it. If you're looking for a suspect, put it on the news. Suspect gets arrested, great. Put it on the news. You don't need to keep talking about it, because the more you talk about it, the more you literally taint the process. Literally.
Sure. And how are you going to find a juror that isn't tainted in some form or fashion?
Yeah, exactly. And, I think, unfortunately, through most people's experiences and lenses, Archbishop, this moment in and of itself that we are discussing is tainted.
Sure.
And that is why I will not put any judgment on it or anything like that. Only thing I can say is wasn't very appropriate. And that's it. But
yeah. And I don't blame people for looking out the side of their eye at them.
No. No.
I can't blame anyone for doing that. Even I'm looking kind of out the side of my eye at them. But until my doubt is proven one way or the other, I'm going to keep an eye on the guy. And once again, he's been seen to have a couple big lapses in judgment in the past decade. I'm not going to say any crazy improprieties, things like that, but the whole thing with Nixium, just wild. And now this, it's definitely interesting. So, once again, I want to raise an eyebrow.
Absolutely. And if anything, it should raise an eyebrow with everybody as far as where they stand. What is their limit? At what point is it a joke? At what point is it not? So, we have to be willing to hold ourselves to that same scrutiny. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come on and discuss this in a very raw fashion, Archbishop. This is very not our typical fare whenever we are on the phone together and recording an episode. So I want to thank you for your very candid speech, because once again, I think it is something and a conversation that we as a society need to be willing to have, and openly out in the open about it. Was this
society
too far?
Needs to have more hard conversations.
Yeah.
About a lot of things going on in society.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we let you go, let everybody know, of course, where they can go to follow your work, where they can go to keep up with things. You're always posting videos on social media, all kinds of stuff. And, of course, where they can go other than the Curious Realm store to get your book.
Yeah, Walking with Ghosts, an Exorcism Memoir of the Paranormal is on Amazon. I actually just wrote a kid's book, too, a bedtime story.
Oh, wow. It's called exorcism?
No, it has nothing to, that would be a great bedtime story.
Dang.
You kids see the dark monster under your bed.
Yeah. Good night.
Sleep well, kids. No.
I'm horrible.
No, the title is Toomie in the Garden, Koomie in the Garden. And it's about a kitten that loves flowers and the environment and teaches other animals how to appreciate the environment too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's also on Amazon.
Well, fantastic.
It's just a little 11-page, nighttime story, a 5-10 minute read.
Well, I will have to definitely pick that up for my son. One of the ones that we have been reading at night is Heart Prints.
Okay.
Talking about how you can help other people by just being there.
Nice.
It's a really good one. So, thank you so much for your time. Please do hold the line while we close things out with our audience real quick.
You got it.
Of course, while you are online checking out all the amazing work of Archbishop James Cloud, folks, make sure to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is the website. That's also where you can go, CuriousRealm.com/story, to share your story and experience of the paranormal, odd technologies, cryptids. If you are a targeted individual, let us know your story. You can share your images, videos, audio with us. We will present your case to our experts and try to get you more answers. We also have our listener line. If you would like to leave us an audio message in the same format, feel free to give us a call. 512-298-3913 is the number. That is where you can go to leave your report, and we will use it here on the air. Thank you so much, as always, for everybody for tuning in every week, keeping this show going. Man, I love the conversations we have. The conversation that we just got finished having, I think, is one that we as a society really need to explore with ourselves. So keep asking yourselves the hard questions, folks. Don't ever stop. Remember, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and stay curious. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of The Curious Realm. Stay tuned for more guests, forbidden topics, and hidden truths. Download the official Curious Realm app and view the Knowledge Vault on our website, CuriousRealm.com. Follow us on social media by searching Curious Realm. Curious Realm is available on your favorite podcast services, as well as YouTube, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV through the APR TV app, available on all app markets. Curious Realm is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more great content or to become a sponsor of Curious Realm or other podcasts, visit hcuniversalnetwork.com today. Thanks for listening. Stay curious. And remember, the other side is always watching.